All right. Welcome back to All Cars, y'all. My name is John, and it is time for another Motorweek Retro review reaction. This one is the 2015 Chrysler 300. Now, this one was actually recommended, or at least the Chrysler 300 was, by one of my viewers, and I thought with the 300 being canceled and the death of the full-size rear-wheel drive American sedan, it was a good time to take a look back at this model. So, as always, make yourself comfy. Grab your beverage of choice. We've got some fully caffeinated, and it's afternoon, so I'll be up all night. And let's see what Motorweek said. And I wanted, before we jump into it, they have multiple Chrysler 300 videos, and I decided to do the latest, greatest one that I could find by them. And it gives us a chance to have that look back and kind of reminisce a little bit about some of the previous generations as well.
Motorweek is made possible by Rock Auto, Tire Rack, and Die Hard.
Full-size rear-drive American sedans are few. In fact, there's only the Chevrolet SS and the dynamic duo from Fiat Chrysler, the Dodge Charger and the Chrysler 300, which have both gotten revisions of late. Of course, it's the Charger Hellcat that's garnered most of the headlines, but that doesn't mean that its classier cousin doesn't have a lot to offer.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the styling here. We might get more into it as we get deeper into the video. I've got a lot to say about this, so bear with me here. Good looking sedan, okay? And part of my struggle with the 300 is it's 2 or 3 different personalities all in one different vehicle. We'll talk more about my feelings about it later, but it's kind of positioned under the Chrysler banner as the peak, more of supposedly a luxury vehicle, but then they give it this aggressive looking styling as well. It looks menacing, especially in this color. In other colors, not so much. And in lighter colors, to me, white or silvers, things like that, this styling is an improvement over the previous one, the first generation, but it never quite becomes beautiful to me. Let's see what else they say.
Doesn't have a lot to offer. If you're looking to add some rolling bling factor to your life, look no further than this 2015 Chrysler 300. When the original LX Platform 300 launched for 2005, it did a lot to bring both traditional rear-wheel drive 4 doors and what was Daimler Chrysler at the time back into sedan prominence. But current sales are about half of what they were back in those heady days, despite a major overhaul for 2011. So, of course, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles is hoping that some well-placed tweaks will reverse that trend. The updated, still Bentley-esque styling is bolder and fancier, but not garish. More like the 300 is maturing gracefully with class. The grille is larger naturally, and headlights are redesigned with C-shaped LED DRLs for instant notoriety. The rear fascia is visually widened with polished exhaust tips enlarged and pushed to the corners, while new haloed LED taillights add another flash of elegance. And of course, the accessories always make or break the outfit, so they're new wheel designs as well. The 300 has...
Before they go on to the interior, I'm going to go back a little bit here to that profile view. And again, as a overall styling package, it doesn't really work for me. And I think it has trouble really deciding what it wants to be. And I think that Chrysler, Fiat Chrysler, and now Stellantis really just didn't know what to do with it. I'll share my thoughts and why I've thought very seriously about these over the years and why I've specifically never gotten one at the end. But like when they were talking about the headlights, like the headlights are fine and the grille is bigger and certainly contemporary, right? You know, as grills get huger and huger and huger, this showed some relative restraint. They said it was Bentley-esque, and it's both muscular and expressive and kind of bland all at the same time. Like, they've got the grill, they've got the headlights, and then everything else around just smoothed out. And, you know, down the side, you've got a lot of real estate to work with here. There's like a crease, but then they've got those shoulders over the front wheels, that rear C-pillar that widens out to a relatively short trunk lid, which does and doesn't bother me. And the taillights are just not quite rectangular. It's muscular, it's expressive, but at the same time, it feels like the designers were like, oh, we can't do too much. We can't be too wow. And they ended up with something that is not ugly by any stretch. I think it's a handsome vehicle, but it doesn't move me in the way that I hate to draw the analogy, but you go back and look at like a old Chrysler New Yorker, a generic wedge built on the K platform, but at least the styling said, dang, that's somewhere I'd like to spend some time. This just really doesn't. It's almost like, to me, it's almost like some of those older cars with like a really long nose. This would have looked better with more of a notchback. I think that's what I'm saying. I'm not a stylist. That's my thoughts. It's handsome. It looks good. But it just ends up being plain Jane a little bit while still looking menacing. It's a weird styling car for me.
Break the outfit, so there are new wheel designs as well.
And let's talk about the wheels. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. This is another good example. What are you going for exactly? Are you looking for upscale luxury? Are you looking for Bentley-esque? Are you looking for just traditional mid-sized car or large car? Are you looking for something blingy? Are you looking for the hip-hop crowd? Just a lot of mixed messages there.
Well, the 300 has always had an eye more towards international competition than domestic, and the interior gets a new, somewhat gimmicky set of themes inspired by American cities. Lighter motifs drawn from the sun and sand of La Jolla, California, and the zen-like peacefulness of Sausalito, while darker treatments draw inspiration from the industrial complex of Detroit and the high finance lifestyle of Manhattan. All questionable marketing fodder aside, there's nothing gimmicky about the well-crafted space with quality materials that suggest they've got a Groupon deal with Audi. Everything directly in front of the driver has been updated, including the steering wheel and gauge panel. The 300 joins the smaller 200 by employing a rotary shifter for the standard 8-speed automatic transmission that makes for a much smoother design. And if you've ever wondered what it would be like to drive the old lazy boy to work every day, this is about as close as you're gonna get.
I have really no problems with this interior. I can nitpick it, and I'm wondering whether to say this next thing for y'all. I kind of like Chrysler's interiors. I think they've been doing a good job, and I think they've been doing a good job for a long time. There's other things around Chrysler and Fiat Chrysler that keep me tuned off of them, right, with some quality and reliability issues that concern me. But their interiors consistently, I think they look great, especially in pictures. If you really nitpick this, and we went back, under the vents on either side of the infotainment, they've got the little slider back and forth, and then there's just empty space. And down where the HVAC is, there's just empty space around it. It's like the designers were afraid to go too big, but they had space left over they never knew what to do with. Why not just put bigger vents in? It's handsome. It's functional. I think Chrysler did this interior right. I think they actually like the interior of the 200, come to think of it. I'm not a big fan of the rotary dial. Nitpick. Other than that, and it's stupid names for the interiors, right? Zen-like for Salsarita, whatever. But I've got no real problems with the interior. It looks like a wonderful place to spend time.
Provided you can stay awake through your entire commute, you'll find the 300 drives very solid and not necessarily as big as it is. New electric power steering surely helps with that illusion. And in an unfortunate twist of events, Chrysler now forces you to make a tough decision, as while both V6 and V8 engines are still part of the picture, all-wheel drive is now available only with the V6. For throttle jockeys like us, the V8 is the way to go, but we realize that more and more buyers want their all-wheel drive traction with the fuel economy of the 6, so we did here as well. It's the well-received Pentastar 3.6-liter V6 with 292 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers climb slightly to 300 and 264 in the 300S. The V8 is the equally familiar 363 horsepower 5.7-liter Hemi. So, at our test track, we Pentastarred our way to 60 in a very respectable 6.6 seconds. The quarter mile passed in a snappy 15 seconds at 95 miles per hour. Full halting from 60 averaged a good 124 feet, and the braking experience was quite pleasant.
Before they move on, I'm going to cover a couple different things there. The first off, the V6. I've talked about it on the channel numerous times, and through those comments, through some reading, and through comments I've received on the videos, I've got a mixed feeling about the V6. Numbers-wise, I have no problem with it. Performance-wise, in a car this size, I have no problem with it. It's the longevity of the engine, because I've had people who've commented on my videos who are like, I've had absolutely no problem with it. I've had quite a few who've commented, if you follow the oil change schedule, if you rigorously maintain the engine the way it's recommended, it's fine. But then, as I've said before, my mechanic has a passionate hatred against these engines because of how many he sees that have had problems. And I wonder if that is not a holdover from the Daimler times. I have not looked up the development time of this engine and whether it extends back to Daimler's ownership, but something that does exactly what it's expected to do as long as you maintain, here's our maintenance schedule for, that sounds so German to me. So I have mixed feelings about it, where I think it's a good engine. I don't dislike driving it, but I have that concern that it's a problem, and I can't quite shake it. So here, I like V6s in my sedans. I've got mixed feelings about it. But overall, the first part here, no problems, especially I would say the braking. 124 feet, I believe they said. You can't fault that, certainly not for a car this size. Good results all around. And that was with the V6.
Front suspension makeup is a short, long arm design with one-piece lower control arms, while the contact patch in the rear is managed by an isolated 5-link arrangement. The more aggressive you drive, the more the 300's 2-ton mass shines through as understeer arrives early. The V6 300 AWD and S trim adds a sport mode that puts power to all 4 wheels to aid cornering. Obvious if manageable body roll, however, doesn't go away. Government fuel economy.
Well, it's not a sports sedan. They made certainly powerful versions of it, but it's not meant to compete with BMW. they said a lot there to say that it seems okay, and when you're coming from segueing from a section where they're talking about if you've ever wondered what it's like to drive your lazy boy, and if you can stay awake, it drives pretty well, to here's our complaints. No, I'm not putting any weight on that. This is, again, somewhat mixed messages, right? On the one hand, it's apparently supremely comfortable. It is luxuriously quiet and can lull you to sleep, but at the same time, they end up offering V8s and SRT versions that are meant to be so much more sporty, but all the body roll, it just, to me, again, mixed messages. It's not a focused car. I'll have a thought on that in a minute.
Ratings for the all-wheel drive V6 are 18 city, 27 highway, and 21 combined. We averaged a right-on 21.3 miles per gallon of regular. Despite its bling, the 300 is still attainable full-size luxury, starting at just $32,565. This all-wheel drive 300C stickers for $41,565. In Detroit's heydays, big, luxurious rear-drive sedans ruled the American roads. Now, the Chrysler 300 pretty much stands alone in offering impressive luxury for a reasonable price. And 2015 updates should ensure that more Americans take advantage of it.
Okay, so I think you can hear in my voice that I'm torn on this car. Good review, solid review, and I have very, very mixed feelings about it. I really do, and I have for its entire life. On the one hand, when I am on this channel and I do videos and I talk about where's the cars I want, where's my V6 rear-wheel drive, quiet, comfortable car, right? And people, as I've said before, are like, well, you're asking for the Lexus ES. But it's also this. It hits in a bubble. It hits everything I talk about. And the styling is certainly noticeable. And when it came out, it was quite the hit because it looked gangster. And I'm talking old-fashioned Al Capone kind of gangster. It was cool. And even though they updated it, it somehow straddles that. It's not quite, a competitor for a Mercury, an Oldsmobile, and a Buick. It's not really a Cadillac, Lincoln, Lexus, Mercedes. It's just in this weird zone where it's expressive, but what is it expressing? And it got some benefit from being developed with Daimler and getting some Daimler parts, certainly on the suspension. So there's part of me that when I've sat in my quiet times and thought about cars, and I come around to like, why not the 300? It seems to be everything I want, and I kind of like the interior. But when I dig deeper, certainly it's a little more money than I would want to spend, and the gas mileage is not good. Part of it is that I find the styling expressive and generic at the same time. And the second thing is it's a large car. What if you want something more mid-sized? And really, I do. If you think about when I was younger, and in my 20s, you buy a Buick Regal. I didn't want a LeSabre, right? I didn't want an Electra. I didn't want, at the time, a Park Avenue. I wanted something with a little bit tidier dimensions. And that's kind of how I feel about this car. I have looked at this so many times over literally the decades it's been for sale. And I just can't get there. And I've actually tried to have another sedan, to have a V6 rear-wheel drive or V8 comfortable sedan, I feel this is something I could drive for a long time, but I don't want to maneuver something that big around. I don't think that the gas mileage is great, and overall, the styling doesn't express me. So it's sad to see it go. It really is. It was a hold on to a better day in some ways, and I wish they had developed that next generation. I wish Chrysler had developed that next generation. I wish they could have taken it down to another model that was smaller, not the 200, but something along this line that was just smaller. And they never did. Now, I do think that with the heritage of the 300 name and the 300C, I do see it coming back. You know, as long as Chrysler survives, as long as Stellantis continues to invest in them, as the new platforms come around and they figure out, and we all get to see what the heck they're doing with Chrysler, I do expect to see another 300 sedan. Have nothing to base that on, but I'll be looking forward to it at that time. So, thanks for being here. Appreciate the trip down memory lane and just a little tugging at the heart, right? The heartstrings of another historic nameplate that's been canceled, and we just have to wait to see if it comes back or not. If you had one of these and you loved it or hated it, of course, let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on my struggle with this vehicle and how I just can't get there and ever really want one. Thanks, guys.